the pillars, what we need to understand about vocabulary, 4 types of vocabulary, how we learn vocabulary, vocabulary instruction, and a bit on assessment. Okay, and you've probably seen this before. So decoding, so there's the simple view of reading is that to be a skilled reader, a proficient reader, you have to have strong skills in decoding and language comprehension. If you are a struggling reader, you likely have deficits in decoding or in language comprehension or in both. Both decoding and language comprehension can be assessed separately and they can be taught separately. So you'll see today that vocabulary falls under language comprehension, but you'll notice later that morphology also slides a bit over onto this side as well. And so you can look for that in a bit. So there's 5 pillars of reading: phonemic awareness, phonics instruction, fluency, vocabulary, and comprehension. We will be following up with another pillar on December 6th, comprehension and fluency, and you can register on events. Today's is vocabulary, like we said, and we will have a recording. So why vocabulary? Well, vocabulary is a strong determinant of reading comprehension. Having a broad world knowledge and vocabulary provides an academic advantage as this knowledge builds over time, and researchers have varied in their estimates of how many words children must learn to be successfully prepared for college and careers, but estimates range from 3,000 to 4,000 words per year. So that's a lot of words. So a lot of vocabulary needs to be acquired, I guess, in kind of a short time during their schooling years. Now, students acquire 4 types of vocabulary. So when they're at home, they do start off with their speaking vocabulary, and that's words they use when they speak. And then listening vocabulary are words that they need to know and understand what we hear. So those are the 2 things that they start off with. And then as they come to school, and maybe before school, they have a reading vocabulary. And those are words that we need to know to understand as we read. And the writing vocabulary, which is the words we use in writing. So there's technically 4 different types of vocabularies. Now, home literacy, as you all know, is very important. And that speaking and listening vocabulary are also known collectively as oral vocabulary. Students coming to school with a large oral vocabulary tend to be better prepared for reading, especially reading comprehension. So you can only imagine or have noticed, especially if you've taught a while, that the amount of oral language is probably decreased in the home in some ways, maybe because of devices and whatnot. Maybe there's less read alouds, less talking, maybe at the dinner table, and less of those things where kids are building up their oral vocabulary. So even if you have kids right now at home, it's a good idea to just talk a lot and just tell them I said so. Even in the car, having those conversations, talking about big and challenging words, but those things really do help them in school. And we need to build those things if we can at home to have extra teaching and learning. Okay, so there's 2 ways to learn vocabulary. Indirectly, and that's just being at home. And that's through daily oral language, listening to adults read, and reading, being read to extensively at home, or even just hearing their siblings reading. And so that's one of the ways. So you can imagine we can't control that very much, but hopefully the students come to us with some sort of oral vocabulary that we can build upon. And then directly, and that's our department. So although a great deal of vocabulary is learned indirectly, some vocabulary should be taught directly. So direct instruction helps students learn difficult words, such as words that represent complex concepts that are not part of their everyday vocabulary. And direct instruction of vocabulary is relevant to given text, leads to better reading comprehension. So as you know, pre-teaching some of these words that they might stumble upon, words that are going to connect throughout the day or that are going across language arts and social studies, very important words to teach to help them to understand. And definitely these are kinds of words that students would not unpack on their own. And so we have to help them with that. So how do you do that? Well, Graves has suggested 4 things. So rich and varied language experiences, direct instruction and word meanings, strategies for learning words through context, and opportunities to promote word consciousness. And I'm sure you're all saying to yourself right now, because I bet you are, what is word consciousness? Well, I love this quote. He says, some students live largely in an unnamed world. So do we know what this is? You can pop it in the chat if you want. What is in fact this called? Students may have seen this or not, but some of them may have seen it quite a bit and have passed through it, but really don't know what it's called. So they may have never asked a grown-up, thank you, turnstile. They may have never asked a grown-up as to what it is. And so therefore they don't bother to ask and they don't bother to name it. So this, I know this seems crazy, but I even noticed this with stuffies. Kids call their stuffy Stuffy. Well, my dolls all had names, and sometimes last names and middle names. And so we need to kind of get them, sort of let them know that everything in the world has a name and a word, like just like those weird little things, you know, we put into paper to twist two papers together. That's called a brad. Who would have thought it was called a brad? Not a Brad Pitt, just a brad. But that's a weird name for a weird thing. But I'm telling you, it's that gold thing you stick through and then you, it's kind of like the duotang, those things that are, they're brads. Anyway, and then they can move things. But we have weird things even in our classrooms and things that have weird words, but teach the kids so they can have better vocabulary. And that's actually kind of fun to teach kids crazy words they may not know. So how do you promote word consciousness? Because we don't want to be word unconscious. No. So a good idea is to keep track and celebrate sophisticated words. And I loved you, and I taught as low as grade 1. So I loved using big words even in grade 1. And you know that books like Fancy Nancy and those early books do try to capitalize on that idea. So just making a tally, celebrating big words, having a mascot like a dog. This is from an article, I don't make this up. And the dog, he just collects bones for every wondrous word used, and you can like put it in a big like container and oh my goodness, look at that. Or when the students are getting supplies, this is an example, instead of just saying, go get the supplies, say, let's go collect the supplies. Let's go dispense the supplies, distribute, gather, etc. So that's the article I got that from. So essentially just trying to change up your language and use those big words. Wide reading, we know students need to be reading a lot, encouraging students to read across different genres and different types of text. But basically, students need to read a lot in order to get the amount of words that we need them to learn. So, and this, you can read this quote here. So if they read more than 2 million, so if they read 60 minutes per day, 5 days a week, you can see they can read that many words per year. That's a lot, right? Okay, so if you ever want to throw something up there for demo to tell parents of why it's so important, that's a good one. Consider reading across genre. So if this is for your kindergarten folks or anyone else who can sort of extrapolate this idea, if you're teaching, say, fruit and vegetables theme, maybe, you know, present the same theme in different types of text. So narrative, informative, interactive, alphabet, and counting. So this works all the way up. Just try to, you know, not always, if you're working, say working on trust, they're doing the theme of trust, then you can definitely have a poem, you can definitely have a song, you could definitely have an article, but like trying to vary and push them to read across different genres helps to build vocabulary, because the vocabulary in those different forms can be different. So note there's a continuum of word knowledge, right? Even now as a grown-up, I learn a new word almost probably, I would say maybe every day, just through reading and stuff. But like we start with no knowledge, and then gradually as we use the word, we're able to use it in such a way that we can connect it to many other meanings. But along the way, we may only have a general sense of the word, and then generally only if it's within a certain sentence or meaning. So what does this mean? This means, of course, that students need multiple exposures to assist with learning new words. So trying to review those words, circle back and use those words as much as possible. And that's why that is so important. So vocabulary develops through many contexts over a lifetime. Vocabulary knowledge is knowledge. The knowledge of a word not only implies a definition, but also implies how the word fits into the world. I love that. So knowledge of the word river. So knowledge of the word river starts off as a kid, you see a river in a book. And then suddenly we're going and looking about different types of ways that you can see rivers. So if you go into the dictionary, you suddenly see there's different definitions of river. There's different synonyms of river. There's River Phoenix, just kidding. That's a joke for those of us who've been around a while. And then there's a thesaurus, also has different synonyms for river. So once you learn the word river, you might learn these other words as you go through life. Like it never ends, people. Learning never ends. So you can see all these different meanings of river. So it just starts with a word and then suddenly develops. So we call that schema too, how much you know about a word. And it always extends out through the rest of your life, like I said. So this is a great image, semantic map kind of thing, that how many things are related to the word river. So all these different types of rivers and things like weather conditions, and it gets into rock suddenly, but it's sort of, words don't exist in a vacuum. They connect to other words and become these giant webs. So even if you want to try webbing with your students, webbing words, going into the dictionary and thesaurus and seeing what other words are connected And that's really helpful for them because they need to see the connections. Kids are struggling hard. Background knowledge really is challenging for them, and to kind of build this as you can. Another thing, of course, is words have many different meanings. So we ate the dinner at the table. I organized my information into a table, and there was no time left, and the issue was tabled until next week. So you can see that if you're a proficient reader, you're going to read a sentence and kind of figure out in your mind which of the ones the word means. But if you're a struggling reader, you might only know one meaning, and so you're going to struggle through that reading, and you're going to create a different meaning. I always share this one because I was actually an okay student, but for whatever reason, the word bill in grade 6, the signing of a bill, I thought it meant every dollar bill that they created, they had to sign. They meant, of course, law and all that. Like, seriously, missed the boat on that. So never underestimate or assume the students know about these things, because I really didn't. Okay, here's a time to try this one out in the chat. This is called semantic rating or shades of meaning. You might have seen these on teachers used to go and steal paint samples. That's what we do. It's fun. You go and steal paint samples. And basically the idea is to put a word to have a word and another word, and then you're trying to find the words in between that gradually get to that other word. So if bad is our starter, what words would come next until we get to deplorable? So I'll give you a few seconds here. Which should you think do you use the letter order? You don't have to type all those words out because you're tired with typing. I know it. And I'll give you the example and give you the answer. Does anyone want to give it a try? So which word would be next? Oh, I don't know. Whoa, okay. So let's see. So she's saying CDAB is what I'm, okay, we see DC. And this, of course, is how you see things, right? With a spelling error for fun. Yeah, it's okay, Margot. We've all been there. Okay, here we go. Ready? This is what they said. Like, when you could argue later with me if you want, but this is what the answer is, supposedly. So you may disagree on the BA there, Cherry, but like AB, whatever, but that kind of idea, we pretty much all had to start. So basically having your students, and you can imagine how much fun this would be, an assessment in some ways to see how they're thinking about words, but to have them work in groups to do this, of course, right? We don't want kids falling apart on their own, but just working together to solve that. Okay, tiered vocabulary. You probably have heard this, hopefully. There's 3 tiers. So tier 1 is our everyday basic vocabulary. We generally don't teach these words. However, kids who are ELL, definitely these words would be taught to them more directly than the other kids. Tier 3 will hop up here. This is our science, our math words, our social studies are very specific content words. And then tier 2 is where we need to make sure we also visit. And that's our words like describe, evaluate, establish. Those words cross across boundaries. They're called our academic vocabulary. They are often used like PATs in the questions that the students get. And it's really important to at least, to touch on your tier 2 words every week, picking the ones that you think are best for your students. But really consider that. How much do you teach these words? And where can you fit it in now that you know about it or refreshed about it? So academic vocabulary, that tier 2, it's a key currency in school because it's required for success in classroom discussion and discourse and learning from text in elementary school through college. So very important. So Benson Ramsey, and they did the layers of reading through ERLC lately, and they suggested 4 categories of tier words. So subdividing your tier 2 words into transition words, so teaching students transition words, because those words are everywhere. Multi-meaning words like table and seal. Information processing words like describe, identify, and concept words like trust and community. So community happens, and we talk about community in religion, we talk about community in social studies, we talk about maybe a community in maybe a health community, like in health class. So those are words that are not just for one subject, and the kids actually, they need to know that these relate. You have to make it explicit. Okay, so I won't take you through this video, but this video, we'll share the slides, can help you if you're looking to see which words specifically to pick out. But another source definitely is this link here, and that will provide you another information for choosing words. It's from Reading Rockets. It's quite lengthy, but it does really help if you want to get into that a bit more. Okay. Consider explicit and multiple exposures. So instruction towards tier 2 words can be most productive. And multiple exposures, we've talked about this already. Just any which way you can to keep building vocabulary and change your words up and let kids pick words for the day or whatever, but you're really focusing on that and making it fun and just kind of something that happens all the time, not just in LA time or that kind of thing. Okay, so how do you apply knowledge of tier 2 and tier 3 words? Well, here's Rosie Revere Engineer. So you can use a picture book and you can pull out some tier 2 words. You can pull out some tier 3 words, and you can just either, these are the words you're going to be using. Say this would be, I believe, grade 4, am I correct? Levers and whatnot. You could, have pre-taught those words, or it could just be, we're going to learn some tier 2 words and we're going to find them in this passage. What do these words mean? You don't necessarily have had to read the whole book. This might be something where you've read this book before for enjoyment, and then you go back in and say, hey, guess what, you guys? There's tier 2 words in here. And these are, 2 that I found. What do you think they mean? And kids like this. I mean, I would do this all day. Another way to do this is to go to Dogo News or Dogon Ooze. No, I'm just kidding. It's Dogo News. And you find an article such as this, and they actually have them highlighted for you. I know, too much. And then they basically also have check this out, a definition, and they actually help you with it, and it actually speaks it out. So in fact, that's a great example of a place to show students the tier 1 and tier 2 and tier 3 words. And I just did a sample for you, but that could be something to do as a class, or depending on what grade level you have, how you can do. But there's lots of good articles there. I quite like those articles on Dogo News. So other words, what other words are worth teaching? So if the word is representative of words students should know at that grade level, or is key to understanding the text, it's probably worth teaching. If the word is going to be used repeatedly, then it might not be worth teaching. It might be worth teaching, sorry. If the word will be needed for post-reading tasks, such as discussions or writing, then it is probably be worth teaching. If the word's meaning can be determined from context or structural clues, then it may not be worth teaching. So like trying to pick the best bang for your buck, they say. Here's a routine. I'm not saying you have to go, and plan this out for tomorrow, but this is an idea. If you're not too sure, how would you directly teach some words? This is a routine pulled from this article. So you can present the word in context, provide a kid-friendly definition, provide multiple examples, prompt the students to use it. And this is really important, number 5, especially for those doing SIOP and ELL and that kind of thing. We know how important it is to provide images with our words. So you can have a vocabulary wall and do that and provide an image to really help kids out. And then, of course, end with a thought question or interactive activity. If you really want that article or something like that, I could send that article out to you. It's pretty interesting, actually. I like that one. So here's some ways to model word solving. One of them is context clues. And so basically, you want to show students how you can use a sentence to solve an unknown word. So this sentence, I made all these sentences up myself, but the first sentence is kind of nice because it gives you the definition. So the horse was hitched up to a wagon, which is a 4-wheeled vehicle that is designed to be pulled. Okay, the horse was hitched up to a wagon so that we could all ride in the back. So that's extra information to help you with wagon. May not give you a complete answer, but that would be something students can look for in their sentences. Is there something else that can help me with this word I don't know? And then the horse was hitched up to a wagon. So there's no information here. However, a picture could help if there was a picture in the book, but also consider, we talked about word consciousness. Do students necessarily know what that is? I mean, I know I went to school in one of these, just kidding. But anyway, the students may not have, they might think this is a trailer. I don't even know, but they might know wagon because they have a little wagon they go to in school or when they're little. But just consider that pictures don't always help if they don't know what it is. They don't know what they're looking at. The other way is morphology, and we've discussed this in prior pillar PD. And morphology is really the smallest unit of meaning in language. And so just taking those words apart, when students can understand all the different prefixes and suffixes and roots and bases, they're able to, and word families, they're able to create, they're able to determine by taking a word apart so many words than if they had to memorize every single word there is. Okay, so, and kids I find like this. They like to pull apart words and realize how the different words are. Wait, you know what? Yeah, so Florida Center for Research, please check on that link because they have some lessons there and some literacy center type activities for that. And then this one as well. So here again, here's some roots just to talk about this again. We have some Greek. I always say to my kids, you know, bio means life and ology means the study of life. And they say to me, they're in high school and university, they say, we know, Mom, please stop. But anyway, I just find that interesting. And then base words stand alone by themselves, unlike root words. And so again, though, still adding and changing and prefixes and suffixes and just noticing that there's this word here and what it means and how it relates and how it changes meaning with other additions. Okay. Something you can do with students is just, you know, choose a prefix or suffix and see how many they can come up with. Having them try to determine what a word means. Like I've always loved the word recess because cess means to break and re means, I guess, to break again. But if it's morning recess, are you breaking? You're breaking again, but you didn't break before. I know. This is why I'm awake all night. Just kidding. All right. Now here's some resources. Ooh, I forgot the French ones on here. So if you're in the French school, these are from the last presentation. But basically using the resources you have, there's dictionaries. There's thesauruses. Please show kids how to use these in real life or online. They use limited amounts of words unless they're given other choices. Each other. Have kids leverage each other. There might be something on the Chromebook or their digital that they can find and their smartphones if you have older grades. This one's pretty nifty. Do you want to see this? I think, yes, you do. I'm just going to put these words in here really quick. So river, ocean, lake, swamp. Okay, so you put the words in, and this is magical. And then it makes your word list for you. Check this out. I know. So suddenly it creates your kid-friendly definitions that we talked about earlier. So that's pretty cool, hey? I don't know. I thought it was cool, but that's just me. Okay, and the thesaurus. Oh, nope, that didn't work out. Like, whoa, Clark, back it up. Okay, so that wasn't linked. This is another model and just kind of a review, and it's from this article down here. And there's 7 components they talk about for teaching vocabulary. And so some of the stuff we've talked about already. So just having those quality teacher and child conversations. Personally, and you must imagine, I love talking to kids. So whether they're coming in from outside, in between times, just having those conversations. So many kids, and then you've probably noticed, don't necessarily have these conversations at home or very little. You know, they may not have a time to talk to their families. Maybe their parents are working when they get home. And so you really have to realize some kids are conversationally starved right now. So getting those conversations in. Just, you know, being as robust and motivational as you can during this time with your instruction, whatever works, like that dog mascot, whatever it takes. Interactive storybook reading, just making that kind of more exciting. Some people like to teach with puppets. I remember people teaching with puppets. Engaging in literacy-rich environments. And numerous opportunities to practice the vocabulary. So having students practice the vocabulary with each other. Again, we used to have, you know, we have word walls, but vocabulary walls, maybe having the students practice with each other using those vocabularies, that kind of thing. So just trying to leverage as much as you can. And of course, direct instruction and sophisticated and rare words. If you look up favorite words, you can find great lists. I like certain words. Just it's fun to hunt for favorite words in books and to just come up with a new word. And I've had students do that. Just go into the picture book and find a really cool word to share with everybody. And then we learn words that way. And there's more ownership that way. So just to recap, encourage wide reading. So as much as possible, different types of diverse text across genre. Teach word consciousness. So start collecting words, labeling objects in your environment. What are these things called? And always pick the really craziest things you can find in your class. Maybe they just didn't think that it had a crazy word, but bring it into class. Objects, kids love to look at different objects. Facilitate oral and written language experiences, games and discussions. Teach students how to use context. Teach students words can have multiple meanings. Okay. And teach students words are related. So lots of word webbing. Teach students tier 2 and 3 vocabulary, and then teach students morphology. That's all, just that list. Now assessment. I'm not going to go through this one, but the video is here for you. List group label. So that's, you know, that's a strategy you can use with your students. So they're going to list a whole bunch of words. There's going to be a whole bunch of words in the list. They're going to group them how they think and then label as to why they group that way. So that's a great way to review words or to see how they're interpreting words. Another one is 4 images, 1 word, and I'm gonna just fast forward here for a sec. See if I can challenge you. Okay, in the chat, what's the word that keeps that all these how are all these photos related? How? Whoa, Maury or Maury. And whoa, you guys are on fire today. Yeah, so that's kind of, I mean, that would be kind of, I know, time consuming. Well, okay, well, okay, settle down. Just kidding. So you can see that it would be, it might be time consuming to create all these, but maybe not. I have to laugh though. I was Googling seal because I wanted, you know, the seal, and I wanted like the wax seal, and then there's the, you know, the seal, because there's the animal, the wax seal, and then the seal like on a Tupperware. So I Googled seal, and I had to laugh because it came up with Seal, the musician, and I thought that was kind of funny. I never would have thought of that. Of course, there's a musician named Seal. Anyway, back to where we were. Okay, we're almost there, people. I'm just going to go right back to my presentation. I got out of presentation mode. Okay, so that's kind of a fun thing to do, just to get them thinking, how are all these words related? Maybe the kids could make these themselves and pass them on to you, get them to do some of your work for you, and and that really helps, and that's fun. The other one, so the other thing is the reading continuum, and that's on the SharePoint. And if you zoom in, you will see that there is a vocabulary like image icon to help us identify vocabulary quickly. This is the grade 3-4 self-extending readers, so you can see which outcomes are specific or which behaviors are specific to vocabulary, and that will help you. You can see some of the things we've already said. Actually, all the things we've said are in the reading behaviors. So if you're wondering how to interpret reading behaviors, well, this presentation gave you a huge start with vocabulary and how you would teach it then. So if these are the behaviors, how do you teach it? SharePoint, we have reading. Please do remember when you hit this image, you highlight, you hover, and the plus sign will get bigger, and then that's when you click on it, and you'll see the 5 pillars of reading. And there's tons of what do you call it? Oh, see, I'm not going to do that right now because it's going to make me sign in. That's silly. There's tons of resources there for you. Word ladders, you may have seen those, or this. I used to have, because I'm old now, overhead games, and the overhead had a really cool books like this with just like you know, the transparencies, and we would play word ladders as a class, and that's a fun thing to do. And then the top 10 resources on vocabulary, that's at Reading Rockets, and you can find a whole bunch of things there. So all the different ways, and some things that you can share with parents, but lots of like list group labels here, word maps, semantic feature analysis, lots of stuff there. And that brings us to the end. We're able to do a tight presentation under 30, just to support the time, and thank you for coming out after school. And I think we've shared the presentation in or we have not yet, hey? Then I can do that now.